all the fear because, the fear in your head versus what's real are two different things,
Right.
Like when you have
Right.
anxiety, you're kind of thinking, you're kind of like forecasting things in your head because they look so real to you.
You're time traveling.
Yeah, you're fortune telling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're kind of fortune telling it. And then, so like, I was like, there's no bad side to this. There's only good side to it, which is like, I'm in LA. Now it's time to work. And I always have like a beginner's mindset. Like you can't really rest on laurels. You kind of have to think about you're starting over again, but you're starting over with more experience. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm in LA and I'm starting new, and I gotta just prove yourself every day. Just continually keep proving yourself.
I love that. It's so cool. It's like people talk about like starting something. It's like, when's the best time to start it? Well, really, it was 10 years ago, but the second best time is like right now, today, because then in 10 years, you're gonna regret you didn't start it 10 years ago. Which is today.
Yeah.
So like, the present only exists, and we don't have the option to go back in time and start over again. We only have the opportunity to start now, and starting is so important. There's so many people that are afraid of just starting and just doing the one, like, just getting that because they overthink it, like you're talking about, like, what if this doesn't go right? What if that goes? And they're waiting for everything, all the cards, all the stars to be aligned, and like that's not the way to do it. And that's you're never gonna. If you start, you start. If you don't, you don't. And until you start, nothing matters, really.
What's that term? It's like, the fortune favors the bold or whatever. It's kind of like it's like looking into yourself and kind of seeing like what more can be done, and knowing that not all the cards are going to be perfectly aligned. Like you're not going to have everything ready to go. Like I was like, well, I don't have movers. I need to figure that out. I kind of just knew where I was going to live, and that was it. Everything else was like day to day, checking in with my girlfriend, like, hey, have you done this? Have you done that? And it was just like slowly piecing it out. And then I learned a lot from that because instead of seeing it as this daunting move, you just do one thing a day that gets one thing done that's going to help you move it along. And kind of like your career is like, people are like, well, how do you get into certain positions? Like someone asked me, like, how do you work with bigger artists? I'm like, you start with artists that you like. You start with people that you like. You believe in people early. And if you believe in them, they're going to believe in themselves, and then that they're going to push their career even further. I've seen it so many times where an artist or producer literally has no credits to having a number one record in the country. For me, it's like just, believing in the people that you're around, because those people can make it. And anyone can make it, Everyone can make it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. The belief in the artists. I was just talking to somebody who was saying, like, this DK Waddell from the Mixing Music podcast. I don't know if you know him.
Oh, yeah. I get over his studio. He's a cool guy.
Oh, so I literally was on his podcast last night. We did an interview, and we were talking about, like, communication with artists and stuff. Yeah, what was he saying? He was telling me that he really just, like, to a fault almost, just believes in every single artist he works with. If they come to him and approach him and he wants to work on it, then he like believes that this artist is going to make it with like all his heart. Yeah. And I thought that was so cool. It's just like, and ideally those are the clients you work with, or the people you believe in. So, you got to just go hard on and just serve everybody 100%, because you never know. Yeah, not also just because they deserve it if they're paying for the service, but like, you never know which of those people that you give 100% to are going to be the ones that make it,
Yeah, and then they'll reciprocate that good energy and that good vibes. I mean, it's not like back in the day where you were going to the studio and you knew that a major artist is going to work in that studio, and you knew that record was going to go platinum. Like, they knew, you know what I mean? Like, if you were in Record Plant and you stayed there, you knew that you were going to leave with like 25 million plaques. Like, you just knew. There wasn't the access now is just incredible. It's like, what are this? 50, 60,000 songs uploaded to Spotify every day. You're telling me there's a major amount of artists, and it's a fight for attention. So everyone is trying to fight for a New Music Friday. Everyone's trying to fight for the top slot. So it's like, you just have to believe in the artist, and you have to, that's why I go to shows. Really, like I learned so much going to shows, seeing who turns up and who doesn't. Because it's funny, because you'll see an artist that has a huge social media following, and there's like gaps in the crowd. But then you see this indie artist with like 10K following, and they're like literally have to keep the doors open. That's the magic too, is like supporting the artist. Like, yeah, you're working on the record, but I'm like, I want to see them perform this song live. Like, I want to see them live. Even artists I'd never even worked with. Like, it's like, I want to see live music, because then I'm like so much more connected to how other people experience music, like outside of the profession. Oh,
that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. That's a really good point, because it's like when you, I did go to a show of a friend of mine that I mixed his record, and it was like, oh, I really know this record, and it's like so interesting to be like the person in the room that actually really knows the record.
Yeah.
And like to see the faces of other people listening to it for the first time, and it was so interesting, and it was cool, and it's like, yeah, like oftentimes we just kind of sit in this room and we know what the music is, but we don't actually know how people receive it, like you said, and that's something I'm gonna kind of think about a little bit more next time I go to a show like that. I've never thought about it that way, and it's it's neat.
Yeah, it's just going to these shows and seeing these artists perform. I'm like, when we're done with the record, we're kind of like done with it, and we're like, hey, on to the next one, and people think like that. But I'm
totally,
like, out of an artist's whole discography, they only maybe perform like 15, 20 songs. Like, if you're a major artist, like say you're like a John Mayer or like Rolling Stone or a Prince, like they've made hundreds of songs, and people want to see them for like what, maybe 20 songs. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like thinking about like the music that you're making with the artist is building up that repertoire that they're going to be performing those songs for the rest of their lives. So there's like a responsibility that you're doing not only the best that you can to serve the music right now, but to serve the music in the future. And like, how do people even think about that? They're like, oh, there's ways to future-proof the music in terms of format. Like if we're talking about Atmos or we're talking about spatial audio, but like the music itself is like, caring for the music and just being as passionate about it as anyone else,
Yeah, you got to try to make it timeless, like Edward Cord, who's been on the show, says, timeless music. Are you having problems with a website that doesn't actually bring in any quote requests for your studio? It's probably because you're not using EasyFunnels, the #1 website builder for recording studios. With EasyFunnels, you don't just launch your website and move on with your life. Instead, you make use of their A/B testing feature to test 2 versions of your website at one time. All of your website traffic gets evenly split between version A and version B, so you can learn which version actually gets more quote requests. The #1 rule of having a website that actually brings you clients is always B testing. With EasyFunnels, you can always have an A/B test running, so you no longer have the problem of a pointless, ineffective website. Special for Secret Sonics listeners, if you're ready to start using EasyFunnels today, you can get 50% off your first 3 months by going to easyfunnels.io/secretsonics, and there's a link in the show notes below, so go check it out. All right, back to the episode. I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts on Atmos and spatial audio, but let's get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, like, how you've seen New York, and you've kind of been in a place that used to be a hub and is no longer a hub, and now having been in LA, which is a major hub. And it was funny. I actually spoke with Irko. I don't know if Irko mixed the latest Kanye record.
Yeah.
And I spoke with him a while back, and he was telling me, like, when you're in a small town or you're not in like an LA or a Nashville, then you basically need to do like all the things all the time, and you could really niche down hard when you're in a city like Los Angeles or Nashville, where there's such a massive amount of people doing it. Like you said, there's a million of us, right? Like in LA, but it's also like, a community to work with and stuff. And I don't know. Basically, like, what have been some of your breakthrough realizations now that you're in LA that that you've seen is different than being in a place like New York, which I don't want to say is a has been, but it's not the mecca that LA is now.
It's really about communicating and kind of putting your face out there and okay, there's social media people, there's people who are just online, but I'm like, I try to take as many meetings as I can, especially now things are opening up, calming down. Because I'm like, okay, there's one thing to hire someone off of discography alone, and there's another thing to hire someone because you like them and you like their discography, and there's just a cool hang. I remember watching this interview with Tom Elmhurst, and he was like, yeah, they come by the studio and hang out, and we like hang out with his dogs, and like he has a garden in the back. I'm like, see, shit like that is cool. Like even, I went to Versa a few times. Manny American's restaurant. Incredible, by the way.
Well, I didn't know he had a restaurant.
You didn't know that? Oh my god, I got to send you the link. So,
Nice.
His restaurant is connected to Larrabee. So like,
Oh my gosh.
It's a state of the art, live sound. They have an SSL console in there. It's just absolutely amazing. The chef, Oscar, is amazing. I mean, incredible. So I was thinking, there's someone who's like on top of their game mixing wise, but then they have a restaurant as well.
He's like one of my favorite mixers. Yeah.
Yeah, but his restaurant is just as good. It's like the restaurant is incredible.
Wow.
Verse. Yeah, everyone check that out. Verse LA. So like, thinking about that is like he's very social, very social, great person to talk to. So I'm like, those things add up. Like, just having a nice discography and you scroll and, sometimes I see people and I don't even know what they look like. I just see like records and songs. I'm like, I don't even know who this person is. So I try to be a little bit more personal with my brand. With
visible.
Yeah, it's visibility, because then people know what you look like and they see you, and then they can kind of connect more.
Yeah,
it's cool to have a discography that's so well known that you don't need to show your face.
Yeah, you could stop wasting time on social media and just kind of get down to business, right? Just let's all be Sherbin, But
yeah. I mean, he's like one of one,
Yeah.
In terms of what he's been able to do for 20 years and things like that. So
exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, for I feel like for everyone else, they're either trying to cultivate a brand, or they're probably chasing someone else's brand, to be honest, or someone else's thing. Like they're like, oh, this successful mixer does this, so I'm going to try to look like that or whatever.
Yeah. You kind of you need to find your own brand. I think like that's because if you're copying,
it's a bad copy. Yeah, it's
just a really bad copy. It's not the real you. It's not the real, And this is something that I talk about a lot on the air, is just like leaning into being 100% you.
Yeah.
As your brand. Yeah. As like how, or your approach to music and mixing and because like otherwise you're not going to be successful. Like you're only going to be successful if you do what you do best, because then you've set yourself your niche also. Like,
they don't know who to call. They don't call people who just are like second rate whatever mixer. They call people like even the people that I like their mixes of. I'm like, well, they don't sound like each other. Sherbin doesn't sound like Manny. Manny doesn't sound like Jason. No one sound like Al Schmidt or whatever. Like, and then when you think about those people, we're just thinking about their names. Like okay, they're so identifiable sonically that we just, why are they doing that? They're just being themselves,
Yeah, their ear likes certain things and they lean into that.
Oh yeah. They definitely lean into that, and more so unapologetic. I think people do like to have things that are like more charting or bigger pop stuff, and I don't know if Chad Blake is went for that. He just went in a completely different direction, but that's why he's legendary. You know what I mean? He had a discography that sounds like no one else's, and that's in itself a massive career triumph.
Right? Yeah, and that's working for him, and like, which is like proof that you don't have to go like, the regular pop route. You could go the Chad Blake route, and that if that works for you, and that's how you hear music, then more power to you.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. People have been talking about like the long tail of the internet, right? Where like, I actually thought about this when you're talking about like the 10,000 followers on Instagram, but the place is packed out the kazoo, because people really lean into the things they like, and you could really like the most niche things now, like micro influencers. I heard Sam Moses say on his podcast recently. That's the long tail of the internet. Basically, the you know about this concept from Seth Godin?
No, you got to educate me on this.
Okay, so on the internet, there's like the most popular things by like the most amount of people is like equal to like everything else, and like so it's like a curve that looks like a
bell curve.
not a bell curve, but like